Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Break Thru podcast. My name is Josh Rosales. I am the host, and here on the Break Thru podcast, I'm super excited to have Helen Molina. Helen and I go back a long way, and Helen's husband, Jose, same. I mean, this is crazy. We're going to get into some really cool stuff. This is probably going to be one of my top podcasts that I've done. And so I'm really excited to reconnect with Helen. And so here on the Break Thru podcast, we talk about breaking through mindset. A lot of entrepreneurs that I talk about, they talk about that 90% is mental, and then the 10%, which is your body, will follow. But it's breaking through that mindset. So the Break Thru podcast is breaking through yourself 9 times out of 10. That's what it is. But all that aside, Helen, it is so good to have you on the podcast today. I'm like super excited about this conversation.
Look at you. I'm like, thank you. I was so honored and humbled by your invitation. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to. Josh is awesome. And it's kind of weird because honestly, I prayed about something similar to this. Not really a podcast, but I said, Lord, if I share my story, I really am nervous speaking in public, but I don't mind speaking with one person. Like love, that one-on-one attention. So I don't know, this is kind of weird.
No, this is going to be prayer. No, this is going to be really good. So for those of you that are watching or going to be watching, and those of you that are going to be listening to all 19 different platforms that we're on. So Helen and I, let me go back. Let me go back as far as I can remember. So,
yes.
So I grew up in California, in Stockton, and I started working at Wells Fargo probably 23. I want to say I was 23. I started as a customer service relationship person, and then I just worked my way up. And Helen and I, for those of you that are watching and listening, Helen and I were just talking before the podcast. She had mentioned, well, why don't you tell everyone what you were just telling me, Helen, and then I'll go into that.
Well, what I was saying is that you're one of the few person that I've seen the change, from someone that is not a family member or close to you, someone that we've known each other for, I've been married for 18 years. So I think we know each other 18 years because that's,
I remember you were Jose's assistant.
I actually was. He didn't hire me.
Oh, that's right. What location was that? That was
that was the Stockton. It was on Pacific Avenue. Forget that.
Pacific Avenue. That's right. Yep.
That's where I went in to get an interview. But I've known you for 18 years, and I honestly seen you from the Josh that was just going on with life. I feel like, just day by day and just doing your thing, and to see you where you are now. Oh my gosh. Like I said, I want to know what changed, what clicked, what got you out of that comfort zone to become that person that you are right now, doing all these big things. I saw on your Instagram, you have, I think, Miss Tennessee on there. I was like, what, Josh? Or someone there, right? I was like, that is awesome. And so seeing that, and the way that you honor your wife, to me, that is huge. I've seen through the, because I follow you, obviously I follow you on Instagram. I see how much you care for her and help her. And I think that's huge. I don't know that part of you, when you were here in California, but I see that now, and I know something must have happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to know because it's amazing,
And vice versa. You have gone through, and I can't wait to hear your story, because you have gone through life changes.
Yeah.
and you have done, like, I would never have thought in a million years that you would be doing like the fit shows or like the
Bodybuilding.
fit. Yeah, I'm like, dang, Helen, wow. I was like, wow. I'm like, dude, and then just
Getting out
your,
of comfort zone.
yeah, I'm like, and then it's like some people are like, no, I got to go to the gym. And you're like, no, I'm working out in my garage and with the kids running around. And it's like, and all the things. And everyone tells me, you're so busy, Josh. Like you're doing so much. You got a nonprofit, you got the podcast, you got work, you're doing this and doing that. And for me, it's just normal. Like I mesh everything together. And I think for people like years ago, I always thought to myself, which wasn't a good thing. Well, yeah, I'm it's a chip on my shoulder because I'm busy and doing all these things. And when I really like probably about a year and a half ago, I came to realize that, everybody is busy in their own way. Just because they may not be doing as much as me doesn't mean that the level of busyness is right up there with me, because
Right.
everybody is busy. So like I got put in check. Like I think it was probably the Holy Spirit that put me in check, or it was just myself, just because I think a lot now. I read a lot of listen to a lot of audiobooks. I watch a lot of YouTube channels on motivation and mindset. And I and podcasts as well, but I just got put in check, put myself in check. That was like, you know what, just because you're busy, there's other people out there that are just as busy. And like you can't really measure yourself against everybody else, because everybody else has a different busyness. So
Yeah.
that's one of the ways. But for yourself, like I'm like, man, I picture like when I first met you, Murata Lane. Murata Lane, that's where it was, the right there on Pacific Avenue, the Wells Fargo. Like I was like,
North Stockton. That's what it's
North
called.
Stockton, North
Yeah.
Stockton. I was like, dang, Jose. Like Jose was just like, I was like, man, this guy. I was like, I don't know how he does it, but he does it. And I'm like, but his just personality is just like
It
a
is.
magnet.
Yeah.
Like you can't like not like Jose Molina. Like Jose Molina is like true, legit, transparent. Like if he helps you, he's not just gonna help you for the sale.
No.
And Jose does more in mortgages, and he helps. Like if anyone, I know Fernando is could be listening to this, but anybody in Stockton, any of my friends in Stockton, Helen's friends, like if you're looking for a mortgage, reach out to Jose and
Yes.
Helen. Like they will hook you up. What's the name of the mortgage company?
Now with Summit Funding, we've been with
Summit Funding. That's right. So if you're in Stockton, reach out to Jose and Helen for that. But like Jose is just one of those guys where he's just genuine. Like he is so genuine, and and he's just, his personality is a magnet. But
it is.
all that to say is, back in Stockton, I was kind of just living my life a day at a time. And I think the difference is that I've always had the beast in me, like beast mode in me. It's like I'll do anything that I need to do. I remember when I first got started at Wells Fargo, there in Stockton, they had me driving to the foothills, like Sonoma County, and I was driving 45 minutes to an hour away. And then I would drive another hour away. And then it was just whatever they needed me to do, I was doing it. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself a year to a year and a half to learn this job. And then after that, I remember going to Vegas like almost every year, top performer award every year. And I remember Stockton, Maine. I was like, you know what? There's 18 bankers on the platform, or some this is crazy amount of bankers on the platform. Probably not as many as that, and they're all in Spanish speaking. You had Evelyn who was speaking, she spoke Tagalog, and you had like 3-4 bankers that spoke Spanish. And I was just like, you know what? if I want to stand out, I have to do things that are going to make me stand out. And so I've always been a fighter, Helen. Like,
I know
you know,
you
I
have.
didn't graduate from a college. I went to Bible college. I dropped out, but I'm always been of that opinion where it's like, I'm going to make my own road and the right doors are going to open for me at the right time. And I don't know where life takes me, but wherever life takes me, I'm going to enjoy the ride. There's been a lot of ups and there's been a lot of downs. However, I've always still kept fighting and always those opportunities that come to me. And so, you know, I kept living that same life until I got to Tennessee, and
Mhm.
then like life really transitioned for me. You know, went through divorce, and then my three kids. We went through that whole shebang, and you know, people say that kids are resilient; they bounce back after a divorce, and they're not. I mean, they feel a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you know, if you get a divorce, like your kids will be okay. You know, no, it's not. It's still so. You know, I'm still good thing everything is a positive on that with the kids, and you know my two oldest daughters are on their own, they're working, got great
Uh,
credit, they like taking care of their money, taking care of their credit, their all that stuff. And then my son getting ready to graduate from high school, he's a junior this year and he's playing football, and you know he wants to get into real estate. And so it's I feel like, yeah, I may not have been the dad that I should have been or could have been, but I was the best at what I thought I could do. And I was talking to somebody yesterday. They were talking about the campaign because my wife's running for school board, and they
mhm.
were talking about how like nobody gave us a manual for this. And I was like, you know what? That's crazy because nobody gives you a manual for anything. Nobody gives you a manual to have kids. You do the best you can. You try to be prepared financially the best that you can, and you have kids. Like nobody tells you gives you a manual on marriage, right? Like in marriage is trial and error. Relationship is trial and error. It's like there you try to read books, you know, you read the best book, which is the Bible, and if you can go by the principles and hold to those principles. But even then, like that doesn't prevent divorce. You know, it's a great it's a great help, but it's like, you know, I think there's like 50% or 50% of marriages end in divorce that are Christians in church, and it's just crazy. And it's like, you know what, it's like, so it's like mentorship, we can go all down that rabbit hole. But like through all of that, I think where my life changed, Helen, was like when I got remarried to my wife. You know, she's Puerto Rican, and she's very, very type A, very just driven, go getter, like,
Awesome.
and that's what I needed. I needed that yin and that yang, even though there's still friction in every marriage, right? It's still
Mhm.
like it's benefited me, and so right when I got into right when we got married, her mother-in-law and father-in-law pastor a Hispanic church here in Nashville. And so
Hmm.
they were like, "Oh, you have background in youth work and all this kind of stuff." And I'm just like, "Yeah." So they threw me in to be the youth leader, and they had like 4 young people, and I grew it till I was like 22 or 23, and we talked about all kinds of just issues and social issues, and you name it, we talked about it. And my wife was over the kids, and they had about 75 kids. And so we're doing a lot of ministry, and I was getting back into it, even though I didn't feel spiritually I was ready to. I don't think you ever like are ready. You just, the opportunity opens and you pray about it and you step into it. And I think God really restores you and works on you while you're doing his purpose. Because all along, like you're in God's plan, right? You're in his purpose. And a lot of times we may not know, or like, okay, is this the right way to go? Should I go right? Should I go left? Let me just keep going straight. And God's just saying, follow your heart, follow the Holy Spirit. Like, I'm going to lead you and I'm going to guide you. I'm going to be your light. I'm going to be your lamp. He says, I'm the lamp unto your feet and a light into your pathway. And you just continue to walk in his purpose, not know, it's kind of like you're walking in the dark, but it's kind of like you have a confidence that you know that God's leading you. And so you're going to keep leading, keep going on this path, and doors open and doors close. And so through that, my in-laws, you know, they were doing a lot of work in the church, and they were taking, pre-COVID, they were taking about 20 kids to Disney World every year, all expenses paid. They would just have to pay for their their like food, but like the hotels and the tickets. And so, and then they had mentorship weekends and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, hey, when you really need to create a nonprofit, a 501c3. So we created the 501c3, and I took that and I ran with it, and it's become, and it's still evolving, but it's just, I think now, not I think, I know that I'm really in my purpose of just inspiring people, networking. Even with my job now, I'm still working at a bank, but the bank is sees how much networking I do, and um, and then with the young people, I'm passionate about young people, and so we're working with so it's the nonprofit. Then I started this podcast because I like to talk to entrepreneurs and just incredible people doing incredible things all across the United States, and get them on. And just I want that these podcasts that I do help other individuals and entrepreneurs, help them connect the dots. I was talking to somebody last night. They were saying, it's very important that you surround yourself with people, because like one people could have the vision, like this is the vision, this is what I want to do. And then, and then the other person was like, whoa, slow your roll. That's a good vision. But did you think about A, B, C, D, and E? And you're like, well, no, I didn't think about that. Well, let's good. I got the vision. Let's bring it down. Let's put it on paper. And then they keep you in check. And it's like, how do you monetize the vision? How do you bring it into a business? So it's so important to have people around you that can balance you out on that. And so I just, I think every day, like you're reaching for your goal and your purpose. And like, I just, even with the podcast, like, I was like, okay, Josh, you got to have a studio, you got to have the top equipment. And I'm like, I'm just going to start it. I'm just going to start it. And I started with two other guys that are on my board for my nonprofit. We have about 10 members, and we're just like, hey, we network so much. Let's just start the brew with the crew. So we started every morning, and it started to get a little traction. But then I was like, hey, our nonprofit is called Break Thru Nashville. Let's just call it the Break Thru U podcast, and we'll go from there. And so it's always evolving. I wake up at like 2 a.m, and I'm just thoughts going through my mind, ideas going through my mind, and I'm like texting myself or using my notes on my phone or jotting it down. And I always have my phone close to me because I'm always coming up with ideas and I want to jot them down. And so it's just, I just have an overwhelming hunger and desire to be better than I was yesterday. And then I have like just mentors, and I hang around people that are like mind, that challenge me. And it's just every day, it's like I'm looking for the next step spiritually with my career. Do I want to work for the bank my whole life? No. I would love to do my podcast full time, and I'm not there yet, but I'm in that process where I'm building content. And the Bible talks about little by little, precept upon precept. Some plant, some water, God gives the increase. And it's just like I keep planting, keep watering, and waiting for things to happen. And it can get frustrating at times, but you got to have patience, because patience is what helps things grow. And so it's so I'm still where I'm at, but it's just at the end of the day, it's that overwhelming desire to be better than I was yesterday. And I'm not going to quit, because I know where I'm at. I know my purpose, my calling. I know that I'm making an impact. And I see it here and there when people come up to me. My wife Frances is like, Josh, isn't there anywhere we can go to where somebody doesn't know you or you don't know somebody? And I'm like, man, I feel like Jose Molina. I was like, man, I was like, it's crazy because it's crazy, Helen, because right when you feel like giving up, something happens. Like, it's like somebody will come and give you a word of encouragement, or somebody will be like, hey, Josh, I see everything you're doing on social media. And I'm like, these people don't even like what I'm doing. They don't give me a like, they don't give me a comment. But every so often, people will tell me, hey, Josh, you're doing a lot on LinkedIn. You're doing a lot on Instagram, Facebook. Like, I'll get comments, and it's like stuff like that just keeps me motivated. And, am I where I want to be right now? No. However, I know I'm going in the right direction.
Yes.
And so I just keep on that. But I just, I get about 4 hours of sleep a day. I go to bed at like 12 or 1. I wake up at 5:30 and I go to work. And then throughout the week, it's just all the things, just all the things. And it's like just organized chaos, meetings and podcasts and family and, just all that. But it fulfills me. Like I'm fulfilled. Like I'm not where I want to be, but I'm fulfilled because I know that I'm on the right path and I know that I'm changing lives. Like for the governor of Tennessee, I'm setting up an event next Friday for him. And so it's being known in the community, doing nonprofit work. My wife's running for school board. We have a nonprofit. We got the podcast. I'm doing all the things. And it's just like, I feel that God, it just has me in this growth place right now where I just got to be patient, and patience at the end of the day will make me stronger, and will make my just everything. You got to have patience when you start stuff too fast, or when you're making. I was reading this book. It's called. It was by David Shands, and he talks about that making emotional decisions are probably the worst thing any business owner can do, is making emotional decisions instead of just sitting on it. And so, I try, and that's why I think so many people, it's good to have people around you, but I'm just hungry, Helen. Like I am literally like, I'm hungry to be better than I was yesterday. I'm hungry I'm 45 years old, and I'm just hungry for the next step: public speaking, changing lives, doing the podcast, the nonprofit, the family. We adopted.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So it's like I'm just like, she's just in my kids, like everyone is healthy. And I just thank God, like every day. Like I rather be busy doing what I want, like what I want to do and what I feel my purpose is. And my wife and I, we work well off of each other because, she's very independent. She's doing her own thing, and I get to go along for the ride, and she gets to go along for the ride with me, and then the kids are. But so yeah, it's just, and a lot of entrepreneurs, Helen, don't understand. Like, I'm sorry, a lot of people that are not entrepreneurs don't understand. They don't, and it's okay for them not to understand. It's okay to go to work at 8:30. It's okay to clock out at 4:30 or 5. It's okay to go home and be with your family, go through the weekend, come back to work and just punch in, punch out, punch in, punch out. But when you're an entrepreneur, it's like the ideas are just coming through your mind, and you have to be doing something. And I know you and Jose understand exactly what I'm talking about, but it's like you're restless. You got to be creating something. And hopefully the creation is what benefits people. So all about me, I appreciate that. This is the other cool thing. I always ask people, I say, tell me what from the outside looking in, there's a saying that says you can't see the picture for the frame.
Yeah.
And it's like for me, like I can see me and my perception of how I think people see me. But when you're the outside looking in, it's a whole different perspective on what people see of you. And so with what you're telling, what you were sharing with me today, like that is incredible to me. Like I take that and I accept that, because like it's not often that you get to hear like a perspective. And this is actually really cool because you've known me for so long, and like we follow each other on social media, but to hear you say that about the transformation, like there has been a tremendous transformation, and hopefully I can continue that transformation. But the transformation is, I could say the exact same thing about you. Like you have I've heard bits and pieces of your testimony, and I think you just did a Instagram live. You were talking about your story, um,
Just
and
a
so I
little.
want to, yeah, I
Yeah.
want to get into that because like I can talk about myself all day. I don't have a problem talking, but like, so first of all, like I'm super excited to have you on. Like I'm glad that we're able to reconnect. And if you could, for our viewers, those that are watching and listening, like if you could just, I want to hear your story. Like I want to know, like what God has done in your life. Just you have such an amazing story, and I wouldn't do it justice trying to talk about it. But for those that are watching and those that are listening, Helen Molina, which is doing incredible things. I'm not even going to do it justice, to Helen. I'm just going to just turn it over to you. You can introduce yourself, get into the story. I just want to hear because I follow you on social media and you're doing some incredible stuff. And I would just say God has done remarkable things in your life and in your family's life. And I want to hear about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh. I'm like so nervous. I've been praying all week, honestly, since I knew about this. I've been praying. I love to pray. I pray literally for everything, even for a parking spot, believe it or not.
You should.
Right. And so a favor. My name is Helen Molina, and you know, my story, and I say my story because one of the many stories, because I have many, I think being a Christian is not somebody that is not just say I am a Christian and I follow Jesus. You literally have to go through these, I feel it's seasons of your life, things that you go through and how you overcome them. Well, I've not been always a Christian. I came to the States when I was probably 8 years old, and we migrated here because, third world country. I'm from Nicaragua. Over there, it was the Civil War. My dad had to go to war. And if he didn't go to war, they were going to throw him in prison and kill him. So my dad decided to flee and seek asylum here. So he came here first, and we follow, I think, 2-3 years after, I want to say. And the process of that, and that's when I knew that there was something different, that something, I didn't know what it was. And I know that now I know it was God. Going through, being left in Guatemala by the coyote, with, my mom, who was at that time, I think she was in her late 20s, with my sister, who's a year and a half older than me. And then my grandmother, not knowing what to do. I know that God had his angels and protecting us. God getting someone that took us from being at a hotel, not knowing anybody, to literally bringing us to San Diego. So we went through the whole legal process, kid you not. We went through the whole legal process of getting situated here. Where now all of us are U.S. citizen. My grandmother went back home and she passed there 4 years ago. And so, but then, growing up here, I remember going to school, grade school, and I didn't know no English. I was in ESL classes, but I always remember, and this was in LA, I always remember when the cops would come and do that DARE program in classes, and I wanted to win a prize so bad. So that's when I knew that there was a competitor inside of me. I wanted to win that. I wanted to answer those questions, but I couldn't because I didn't know what they were asking and I didn't know the answer. All I knew is that they were asking questions and they were winning prizes. So I learned English through TV shows on TV, asking classmates. I remember one time I asked this girl, "Hey, how do you say escoba in English?" Broom. So that was my first word, in English, broom. So, so anyways, we moved to San Francisco, came to high school here, and I have never been the one that had, girlfriends, to be with a clique group or anything like that. I always been my Jose now calls me the lone wolf. And I'm like, hey, I'm a happy lone wolf. I do my own thing. So I remember in high school that, and this is where I feel everything started. In high school, I never did drugs. I never drank alcohol. All my classmates were, not all of them, but most of them. And they always invited me, hey, you want to ditch class? Do you want to do this? And I'm like, no, thanks. So I kind of became like the teacher's pet with this English teacher. Her name was Miss Resnick. And I would actually go to her classroom for lunch, and girls would make fun of me. They literally would make fun of me. Well, I got into a relationship that I shouldn't have gotten. I got pregnant at 17 and in high school, senior year. And I remember Ms. Resnick was very vocal of girls, especially Hispanic girls, coming here just to get pregnant and have kids. You know, she's that mentality of like, no, you know, it was weird. But with me, she was different. There was a connection with her and I, that this lady understood me and I understood her. I don't know why. And so these other girls, when I found out that I was pregnant and they found out I was pregnant, they came to her and they told her, well, you know, your favorite student is pregnant, you know. And when they told me that they told her, I was scared. I was more scared about her than my parents, honestly. I came to class and she asked me to stay after to talk to me, and I was shaking, I was sweating. And she sat me down and she said, Helen, what you just did, yes, it's a mistake, but it's not going to define who you are. Now, what is done is done. You're going to go to school, you're going to become someone, and you're going to prove all these girls that don't like you wrong. And honestly, it just takes that one teacher to change that student's life. It just takes that one teacher. So when I hear that your wife is running for school board, I think that's amazing, because we need more women to step up, you know, for kids like myself, you know. And so anyways, I moved in with my ex-husband. We did get married. My child passed away. We didn't know she was coming sick. She had something with her heart. There were 2 valves missing from her heart, and they needed to be created and put on her heart. She had 2 open heart surgeries, and she passed at 10 days old. I didn't know God then, but I know that there was something comforting me. And I cannot explain the hurt that a parent that hurt, that pain, that hole. I describe it as a hole in your heart that is still there. But now that I have a relationship with Jesus, it's like his hands is covering that hole until I see my child again in heaven. So, you know, that I knew that there was something, and believe me, my relationship with my ex-husband wasn't good. I was verbally, mentally, physically abused. When my daughter passed, I saw kind of like an escape. You know, I had something to where I could just leave. I don't think I could have, if she would have been, you know, alive, I think everything would have just been so different than what they are now. And so I left and came to Stockton and started, you know, and did start my whole life here in Stockton. Divorced my ex-husband, and 2-3 years before I met Jose, my now husband. And I knew that there was something in me, and I even though I didn't know Jesus still then, I always said, Lord God, if you really exist, I really want a family. I want a second chance. I really do want a second chance. And so
boy, did you get a second chance.
Right? He replaces and puts something that is so amazing and good. Don't get me wrong, it's a struggle. It is. Marriage is a work daily, right? But then when you're so grounded and you're rooted, you're rooted, it really, it's like a tree, and then it comes wind, storms, and it's still standing there. Why? Because you're rooted in him. So so I met Jose out of literally nowhere, and here I am, I'm 23 and he's like 43. So I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on here? I never dated an older guy, but he doesn't act his age. That's the thing.
He does not. He still doesn't.
Just still doesn't. He still doesn't. So, when we got married, and that's where it all started. Honestly, I remember him and I not getting along, and I would cry, and kid you not, I would go and this is where I accepted Jesus. I remember I was like, God, if you're real, help me work out my marriage, because right now I'm ready to have a second divorce. I'm ready, Lord. But if you're real, help me get through this. So we started going to church. I started reading the Bible, and I would go to my closet and pray in my closet and say, Lord, he said this, Lord, he said that. And he really, really got me upset, and he hurt my feelings. And as a baby Christian, I know that you hear the audible voice of God, and he clearly says, well, he's not the problem. You are. You are the problem, girl. Start to change. And I'm like, what do you mean, in prayer, right? What do you mean I have to change? I can't change. He has to change. It's his, I know you. I'm reading the Bible. He doesn't read the Bible. He needs to change. He's like, no, girl, it's time for you to change. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I would keep on praying and keep in the same thing, same answer. It was me. I was the one with the problem. Well, I was so badly damaged, I think, from my previous relationship, Josh, really, where I was so shy that I didn't even want to go out of my house. I used to tell Jose, do not leave me alone if we go to a party, a gathering, or even, Wells Fargo, when you guys had those parties. I would be so mad at him if he would get up from the table to go to the restroom and leave me alone. Like, how dare you? Do you leave me alone? Right? And so I remember the day that it happened. We had a huge argument, and I don't know what he said. And I said, Jose, you don't understand. This is my comfort zone. My home is my comfort zone. I don't want to be around other people. This is who I am. And I remember saying those words, and it kind of hit me, and it hit me kind of like, oh God, what am I saying? So again, I went into my closet and I prayed, and he's like, are you ready to get out of your comfort zone? And I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay, what does that mean? I'm like, what does that mean, God? He's like, well, we're going to go ahead and start by singing in a choir. Singing in a choir? I don't even know how to sing. I don't even know how to sing, God. I don't even sing in the shower. Nonetheless, went to the choir, to the pastor, and I said, he says, what brings you here? And I'm like, God told me to sing in the choir. He goes, oh, I love your faith. And I'm like, oh, is that what it's called? Faith? I don't know. So then he puts me through this audition, and I'm like, why am I being auditioned? I don't get it. I don't know. And so, I finished the audition, and he said, oh, you're a second soprano. I don't even know what a soprano was. Second soprano. All I know now, I'm singing in a choir, First Baptist Church, singing in a choir with so many people. I'm in the line, and I'm literally the only one. All those ladies, they were like in their 70s, 80s, some were even 90s. And here's this girl, I'm like dancing. And so that was my first breakthrough, honestly, getting out of that. And so after that, again, I heard his audible voice and said, it's time to get out of your comfort zone again. What does that mean, Lord? What does that mean? He's like, well, it's time for you to go give out Bibles. And I'm like, what? I'm like, where? Where do I go? And I wouldn't hear him. And I heard him said, you're going back to Nicaragua. You're going back to Nicaragua, and you're going to go over there and give Bibles. And I'm like, well, and at that time, it was 07, 08. So that's when the market crashed, everything, foreclosures everywhere.
Man, yeah, I remember that.
Right? We were not closing any loans. And the year is,
Yeah.
I'm unemployed. My husband is not closing loans. How in the world? And I'm like, well, I don't have money for the trip. Well, he's like, well, I will provide. I will provide. And honestly, that's the first time that I seen with my own eyes him providing, literally. And I remember that I would save money, $1, $2, $5 that I would find here and there, and I would put them in my bank account. I'm like, okay, that's the one for my trip. That's for my trip. And I came to Jose, and in between all of that, I would pray for Jose a lot and for our marriage, and to have a grounded marriage, a strong marriage with communication, because I think that's the key in marriage, is having that open communication. You can have communication, but you cannot have open communication is the hardest thing to really have in a relationship with your significant other. And so I told him what I heard from the Lord saying. And my husband, he wasn't a believer then. He's like, what do you mean God is telling you? We got no money. Do you go to Nicaragua? He goes, well, not you, me. I'm going. He hasn't said that you're going. So but anyways, literally he provided everything. I gave out about 200 Bibles. But even before my trip, I said in prayer, I said, Lord, I'm going to go on this trip, and I'm going to go give Bibles, but I'm not going to have those, little bitty Bibles that only has a New Testament.
Big family Bible.
Yes. I said, I want the Old and the New Testament, and they have to be normal size Bible. That's how I want them. I don't know how it's going to happen, but that's how I envision myself giving out these real, regular size Bible. And with that came another that to me is dear to my heart. I remember when I told him, I was working at B of A, Bank of America at that time, where he says, okay, you're ready. Because I used to ask him, am I ready yet to go to the trip? Am I ready? Is it time? Is it time? Not yet, not yet. And I would hear him say, not yet. And that day when I was at Bank of America, I remember I was on the lobby, and I heard his voice saying, it's time. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, let me get my stuff ready. And I remember going into my desk, looking to see how much money I have. I'm like, okay, well, I think we can cut here to pay for my trip. Okay, I think I can. And I'm like, well, I said, if Jose says that I can, that means that it is really you, Lord. Sure enough, he's like, yeah, go ahead and book your trip. I'm not going to stop you. Just go. And that day I went to my pastor. We were at choir practice, and I told him everything. And he said, okay, we'll go ahead and pray for you. I wish you would go with someone else, but it looks like God has you going by yourself. So we'll keep you in prayer. So that day, we used to have choir practice on Wednesday nights, and I was leaving Friday. And that Wednesday night I came, and Pastor Steven said, hey, Helen is leaving to Nicaragua on Friday for her missions trip. Let's go ahead and pray for her. And then he said, let's go ahead and pray. I can't remember her name, but it was another lady there. Her nephew just passed away, and her sister is having a hard time. Let's go ahead and pray for her as well. As they're praying, literally this emotion, and this is where I felt him physically, this thing just came me, and he said with his audible voice, go talk to Patrice. That's right, her name is Patrice. Go talk to Patrice. And I'm like, and I'm fighting him in my mind. No, I don't need to talk to Patrice. That's her nephew. If you want me to talk to her, I only have a daughter that passed away. There is no connection there. And he's like, go talk to Patrice. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why? I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, if she's talking to someone else, that means that this is not you talking to me. I'm gonna leave, So we finished choir practice. I come down, and I see her, and she's literally talking to someone. And I'm like, oh, there it is. I'm going, and as I'm turning, she said, "Hey, Helen, hold on a minute. I need to talk to you."
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm like, oh. I'm like, okay. So I waited, and then she came, she goes, "You know what, Helen, I want to give you a check to give, to buy more Bibles over there, honoring my nephew, Andy." And then I'm like, oh, okay. Well, thank you. Absolutely. And I said, "I'm sorry for your loss." And she goes, "Helen, I have to tell you this. I also need you to contact his mom, because his mom also wants to donate money for you to go give even more Bibles." Andy, Andy, we found out now, that he's gone, that he had discovered, or that he had accepted Jesus before he died. And we have found letters that he wrote to God. We found songs that he wrote to God. And one of his favorite verses was Matthew 25. And so in one of the letters, he wrote that he wanted to be that person that he would go out to nations and give Bibles. And she's like, "Why did God take him?" She's like, "I don't know. But we want to honor him, want to honor his wish through your trip." So I was in shock. I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. God is real. That's when I knew God was real. That's when I knew God was real. And so come to find out, not only Patrice, Andy's mom, Andy's dad, because his parents were divorced, Andy's dad, Andy's siblings, they all gave money. And that's how those 200 Bibles were passed out. And all those Bibles had John 3:16, which is what his mom requested to do, to have on those Bibles. Because I asked her, I want to honor him as well, and I want to be able to give a verse. And these Bibles were in Spanish, by the way, and they had John 3:16 in Spanish, all written there. And I went there. I went to Nicaragua, and I came back crying, and sad in a way, because here in America, we have so many Bibles. I mean, just me alone cleaning my office, I found 3-4 Bibles. Over there, people were stealing the Bibles that I was giving out. They somehow found out where I was staying, and they were coming and knocking to ask for more Bibles because their Bibles got stolen. And I saw the hunger for God's word in a third world country, and here we are, and we take it for granted.
We complain about having to wait too long. Right?
Where they would walking miles to try to find me to get a Bible. And so that's where everything honestly started. Then it went on to how I got to fitness. Honestly, it was from running. Again, his audible voice. "You're going to go ahead and run." "What do you mean run?" He's like, "It's time to get out of your comfort zone." I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. I will always fight him with this. I don't want to get out of my comfort zone. "Nope, you're going to go ahead and run." "Run what?" "Run a race." And I'm like, run a race? And I remember our oldest at that time, he was probably 2 years old. And I came to Jose. I'm like, "Hey, God says I'm going to go run." He goes, "Run what?" "Oh, no, actually, no. What happened is, like, guess what?" He goes, "What?" I'm like, "God said I'm going to do something amazing for I think it was my 30th birthday. And he goes, "What do you mean?" He says something. I'm like, he said something I have never done in my life. And he goes, "You gonna get drunk?" I'm like, no, I did not say for myself to get drunk. Say. I'm like, he wanted me to run. He goes, "Run what?" And I'm like, "A race." He goes, "Oh, okay. Well, good luck with that." So I
can see him.
Right? I literally just started running. And when you said that, when you don't know what to do, I didn't know nothing about races, running, nothing. In PE, in high school, I would get Fs in PE. I'm like, I don't do sports. And I even told him that I don't do sports. I'm like, I'm sure you saw my report cards in high school. That's not me. That's So then if it just, when he pushes you, and it's like, you have to do it. And you just have to start. Like you said, you just have to start. Well, I started by walking half a mile, running the rest. And then when I remember running that full 1 mile, and I was like, yes, I'm an athlete.
Yeah.
Mile.
I see you on social media too. I would see you on social media, like when you started running, and I was like, dang, Helen's like really getting into this.
Well, I just started running. And I remember that once, I was a week prior to, oh no. So then I'm like, oh, well, let's go ahead and sign up for the race, because you told me it's time for you to run your race. Oh, okay. Races in Stockton. I Googled it. And Lodi Avenue of the Vines came up. And I'm like, oh, it's in Lodi. Okay, that's not far. Sure, I'll do Lodi. And then I did not see nothing else other than half marathon. And I'm like, oh, okay, half marathon, okay. So I signed up, not knowing what a half marathon was, signed up, paid for everything at all. We were having dinner one night a week before the race, and Jose goes, so when are you gonna run this race? And I'm like, oh, I signed up already. He goes, you did? I'm like, yeah, it's next weekend. He goes, oh, okay, well, what are you running? I'm like, I don't know, something about half marathon. And he goes, Helen, that's a lot of miles. And I'm like, what do you mean that's a lot of miles? He goes, he's like, you need to Google how many miles does they have marathon, Helen? And I'm like, oh, okay. Google it. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? 13.2 miles? I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? I'm like, oh my God. I literally started freaking out. And he goes, well, it's okay, babe. Why don't you just do this? Just cancel it. Start training for next year. You can run your half marathon next year. And I was really bummed. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not God then. This is not God. I heard him wrong. And then he's like, oh, by the way, did you pay for this? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, oh no, you're running. You're ready. And I'm like, really? He goes, oh no, you're ready. You got this. You got this, Helen. You say you heard from God, you go for it. And that's what I love about Jose. He has always supported me. You know, as soon as I tell him I heard from God, he goes, go for it. So then race day comes, kid you not. I was shaking to my core, because I'm like, I see it was about, I want to say just under 5,000 runners. And I finished my race at 2 hours and 35 minutes. And I was like, this was God. And I fell in love with running. I asked him to be my coach as I trained for more half marathons and eventually full marathons. And he literally was there in my runs when I used to train. And he would literally, and it was Holy Spirit led, tell me what turn to take, how long will it be from here to around the corner. He literally would tell me, and I would look at my watch, my Garmin watch, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so right. So he trained me all those years in becoming a long distance runner. And I had that endurance in me. I felt it. And it was just something that like you said, you just need to start. It will, from just you starting, it will lead you to your purpose. And even though you might see it that moment when you're starting that first day, but once you get there, you'll be like, wow, imagine if I didn't start. Imagine if I didn't, doubted myself and overwhelmed myself with doubts and fear and not start, And so that's how I started. And then also I knew when it was time to retire from running to now bodybuilding.
Retire from running.
Retire from running. I'm a retired runner.
Wow.
To now bodybuilding, because I said, Lord, I'm retired from running and I feel like I need to do something. He goes, all right.
So what made that transition from running to bodybuilding? Like that's a transition.
Totally transition. I mean, everything. And when I tell you that I do everything in prayer, and I honestly do not do something. I know when it's the Lord, when I go to Jose, and if he is supporting me and if he's okay with it, I proceed, because I know that's God. If Jose is not on board on it, then it's not of God, because we're married, so we're one. Mm-hmm. Right? We're one. I can't, your half of your body cannot go here and the other one stay here. You have to stick
That's
together,
true.
right? Yeah. So I remember I telling Jose, I say like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I feel that I'm leaning towards bodybuilding. And he goes, body what? And I'm like, bodybuilding, Jose. He's like, what are you gonna do there? And don't get me wrong, as a man, he did have his like, I don't
reservations.
I don't want my wife in a bikini, on stage for everybody to see. He's like, I don't know. And I said, look, I come to you because I prayed about it first. I went to God first, and I'm okay. I feel that peace that surpasses all understanding. And I tell you this, that you can trust me. I'm not, this sport is nothing the way people that are not into fitness see it, or people that have that mind like, no, it's not about that. I'm going there because I want to see what self-discipline is. The fruit of the Spirit talks about self-discipline. 2 Timothy 1:7 talks about, God did not give us the spirit of fear, timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline, sound mind, right? I want to experience that. I want to be able to experience that for myself. And so sure enough, he's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and do it. And I every training, every cardio session, everything, all I had in mind was, Holy Spirit, just give me the strength, because it's hard. Prepping for a bodybuilding competition, your first time, is hard. I'm not gonna lie. You doubt yourself. You just everything. The fact that you experience your first time experiencing not having carbs, and what that feeling is like. Oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? But I knew that it was God. When I competed, I won first place masters, which is 35 and up, 35 years older and up. I was competing with other ladies and I won first place. Then I went with true novice, meaning that you're first timer, and I'm competing with younger girls, even girls that haven't had any kids. I won fourth place. So I knew that was God, because going into these competition, even runnings, every race, my time was getting better and better and better. And like I said, it just takes me back when I discovered myself that I was a competitor in grade school, when I wanted to answer that question because I wanted to win a prize. But I give all glory to God, because it had made me who I am. My relationship with my husband, like I said, it's an open communication. I talk to him about literally everything. I am his support staff at work. We took that leap of faith of working together in 2009 and have not stopped working since. We did take a break in 2012 because he moved to a different company, but we came back to Summit because we miss the culture and the people, obviously, there. And I know when you're married, your husband has a business. I see it like this. My husband has a business, and I need to be, for my husband to be successful, I need to be that person in the back holding his back. When he feels weak, when he feels tired, or when he has a very long day, bad day, I cannot take too hard, if he's like grumpy or anything, because I know that he had a hard day. I think I know God gives us second chances, but it's up to us if we take that for granted, or if we don't take it for granted and really appreciate and cultivate and water that, it could become something even great,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's where my story is with everything in my calling. That's why I say living my life, literally living a life of calling. Because once God calls me, I go, I follow. Okay, you tell me to do this, I go and I follow. I stop questioning him. I stop fighting him. I stop arguing with him. And now it's just like, it's all normal to me. It's like, okay, just go, just go.
So let me ask you, for those that are watching and listening, and they're having that struggle of the same struggles you're having, what are some words of advice that you would give to them?
And what struggles you mean, like?
So like struggle of just starting, the struggle of listening to second guessing themselves and maybe talking themselves out of what maybe God is telling them to do, or what they feel that their gut is kind of like telling them to do. And you know, like we were talking, we just start, but some people they feel inadequate. They feel like they're not worthy to do it. They feel like it's an insurmountable task, the mountain's too big to climb, that they just see it as an impossible task. What do you tell them?
Honestly, go in prayer, open your
Hmm.
Bible. Or even if you're not, you're like, well, even opening the Bible is too much, because I did sometimes it's too much for, for people. Well, then
Hmm.
start having that conversation. Jesus is a relationship. He's not a religion, you know,
That's good.
right? Prayer he's not, talking to him, oh, that, thy king come, and no, he is a relationship. Hey God, hey Jesus, I'm struggling with this. I'm so
Yeah.
afraid. I'm so afraid. There's this fear in me that I know I have to do this, but I can't. It's too much. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Can you help me out? He says you call on him, he will come and help you. He
Hmm.
says that you call on him, he will go and he will open. Just little, the biggest thing and the biggest mistake that we can do is literally not do nothing. So it reminds me of a picture that I saw on social media, or not on social media. I think it was probably Pinterest or something like that, of a horse tied to a chair. So and that picture spoke. I mean, it literally spoke so. I mean, it was just. I was like, wow, that's me. And that was actually when I was ready to do bodybuilding, because I felt like I was that horse. I was limiting myself because I thought the chair was holding me, and the chair is not, the horse is stronger than the chair. The horse can just run off, and the chair just, right. So why don't you just stop thinking that you are tied to to something that is heavier than you. You're not. That's fear. Just
Yeah.
do it. Just literally just do it. um I had to do it because this feeling that I had, this over, like I had no choice. And I remember there was cases where he told me, if you don't do something, I'm gonna take that away from you and give it to someone else.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I'm doing it, fine, I'm doing
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. It's just literally just starting and having that conversation with Jesus. It's just having, like I said, he's relationship. He's all
Hmm.
relationship, no religion. You don't have to do this, or you don't say 1,000 prayers to Mary or anything like that. He's not about that. He's about having your full attention and on him, and just do it. And if you don't, even if you don't have a relationship, or not the same, even if you're not, but even if you're not a believer, don't let fear overwhelm you, because fear is always going to stop you. You're never going to be successful if you don't step out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. That brings me to my next question. I know you said you love to pray, and you're into the word. Um, so that's number one. the second thing, what's your top podcast, your audio book that you're either currently reading or have read, a YouTube channel that you watch? Like, what is it that gives you motivation? And I know the Bible, that's done, like the Bible is, like, you could say the Bible is the only thing, like that's the only thing that gives me. But when it comes to like bodybuilding or like fitness, like what do you do to like self-develop, like the technical side of like learning how to bodybuild or to keep you going? What are some of your top podcasts, audiobooks, books that you've read, or YouTube channels?
Absolutely. Well, to me, for the whole bodybuilding side of it, it's been a lot of competitors that are professionals, athletes, they're pros at it.
So
There's
mentorship probably plays a big role in this as well, right?
huge role. And I have learned to step out of my comfort zone on social media and literally start asking questions to the coaches that train these pro athletes, and I'm like, to my amazement, they reply to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, they reply to me. And so it's a lot, I think, for me, is that it's listening to podcasts where they're interviewing these pro athletes. When it comes to YouTube, because right now I do have 45 minutes of cardio, I just go everywhere. I go from day in the life on a pro athlete, professional athlete, his life, day in the life, to sometimes Tony Robbins. I do listen to him here and there. It's been a while. Tony Robbins, I listened to him a lot in my first competition. And for books, right now I'm actually going to start this one, and I'm sorry, The Power of Moments.
Oh, that sounds like a good one. The Power of Moments.
By Chief Heath and Dan Heath. So this one was highly recommended by our sales manager or district sales manager. So I do that. When it comes to mentorship, honestly, yes, God first, Bible first, but I do go to our district manager. I go with him. He's with advice. He has seen also my growth since we started working together, Jose and I. He has seen how much I have grown in loving. And even that, Josh, I think loving on people is something that is lack in many Christians, loving on people. You miss a lot of opportunities, and you miss from learning from people that are successful in business. So our district manager, he is one of our mentors, Jose's and I. We even meet with him once a month. He literally looks at all of our budget, family budget, business budget, tells us what to do, literally. I mean, even my expenses and everything. I know our CEO is Jose's.
Is that something that you put yourself under him for that?
Yes, we did. We said, he offered, and we said yes too.
How did that come about? Because a lot of people have a lot of difficulty doing that.
They do. But if you look at someone that is successful, this is my mindset. If you look at somebody that is successful, right, in business, and you're like, I wonder what they're doing. What are they doing that is working for them? I want to know, and if the opportunity is there, hey, okay, yes, let's go ahead and do it. I always say success leaves clues. Right? Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That is incredible.
I'm telling you. And when we started, when he started mentoring us, it's been years now. And now it literally is to the point. I mean, it started from the smallest things to, oh, Helen, since you're the one who paid the bills, pay the bills for the house, you're going to go ahead and pay all the bills once a month. And I used to struggle with that. I'm like, once a month, are you kidding me? What about if, what about if PG&E is 15 days prior to the mortgage payment? And he's like, find a way, but you're only making once a month payment to all bills. And I've been doing that for 6 years now. And now it's just a form. Now I know the 10th of the month by 5 p.m., all bills are gone, are out. I don't have to worry, stress about it, for the rest of the month. They're done. It has just become a habit now. It's something that is just, I don't even think about it. I don't like, to pay bills, right? So I think it's that. It's literally learning from people that are successful in business, for us as a couple that works together. But he also has his own mentor. He has, our CEO. So it's a lot of people in the industry, in our mortgage industry, that sponsor us, that gives us those advices. And I think that's crucial too for growing, is that you have to learn how to be okay with feedback. I learn from feedback. I love feedback, kid you not. I love feedback because it's an opinion of someone, not an opinion of me, but an opinion of how I can get better. I don't see that they're putting me down or that they're looking at the negative stuff of me. I see it that what they're telling me, okay, got it. That will change. Got it. That will change.
And a lot of people struggle with that.
They struggle with that. And honestly, I see it more as a positive thing, because how are you going to grow? How are you going to be more successful if you don't know what you're doing wrong?
Mm-hmm.
You're just doing,
that's true,
trial and error. But why do you want to trial and error, that's true. But if someone can help you not do so many trials and errors, and someone that is more successful, why not?
Exactly.
And so since we adopted that, Josh, honestly, as Jose and I, income has, triple, if not more. Just having those advices take into action. It's just literally be willing to do that. You have to be willing to do that, because if you're not, you're always going to be stuck. You're always going to be there.
That's true.
And not move. And it's in prayer too. I'm telling you, it's all prayer. Jose is like, it's advice, Jose goes with the flow. Jose is like, okay, we're going to do this. All right, let's do this. We're going to do this. Okay, we got it. We do this, but that's one thing I love about Jose, is his openness to things, advice as well. And his support, I think, plays huge, for a wife, and then also for a husband, because I think it has to be equal. Just like he supports me, I want to support him. It's easy for me to support him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, man, Helen, I am so thankful that we had the opportunity to connect on the podcast. And like I said, you have packed so much value into this. I think the one common thread that I hear is to get out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
That's the one common thread through our conversation, especially with God has done so much in your life, and you have really just stepped out of your comfort zone, and a lot of people don't step out of their comfort zone, and then they're like, what if I had stepped out of my comfort zone? Yes. And it's never too late, but sometimes for some people it is too late, or they live a life of regret because they never took that step and never got out of their comfort zone to see what could have been if I just took one step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I want to thank you for coming on the Break Thru podcast. I want to thank you for accepting my invitation and us reconnecting and just talking about
Thank you for having me.
God has done. This is incredible. This is incredible.
Thank you for having me. And what I want to tell you about this comfort zone thing is that if you don't step out of your comfort zone, you're not going to be able to help a lot of people that got
That's
through
true.
have help. Imagine if I wouldn't have, if I would have used the excuse, oh my gosh, some market meltdown, real estate mortgage meltdown, I have no money to go get the Bibles. There's no way that, this is God. There's no money. There's nothing. I don't think Andy's wish of giving out Bibles would have done, and a lot of people in Nicaragua would have missed out on the word of God. So I just think that just getting out of your comfort zone, you just have to do it. Just start, because it will lead to helping many people. That if you didn't, that's I think that's the part of living with regret. What could have been, what could have been the what if.
Exactly. Well, Helen, thank you so much again for joining me